As I got into my late 40s, I went to my doctor and I said, it used to be that if I were 2 or 3 pounds up, I'd just watch what I ate for a week or two and it'd be gone. And I'm noticing that's no longer the case. And he said, yeah, he said, how old are you now? And I think at the time I was 46 or 47. And he goes, yeah, you're actually going to have to try now. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. And he's like, he goes, and then once you get into your 50s, you won't be able to eat at all. He was joking, right? But
Yeah.
he's talking about what naturally happens, especially to women, but to women and men as we get older. Our metabolism slows, and it's much harder to keep off the pounds, even though you're not necessarily eating more.
Yeah, it is a sad fact of nature that there are lots of physiologic things that change in our bodies. As we're getting older, I always think about the fact that we become more likely to become insulin resistant as we get closer to menopause. Certainly we start losing lean muscle mass, and that is a normal function of aging unless we work against it. And so, on so many levels, your doctor is right. And unfortunately, the game changes, if you will. What I could do in my 20s and 30s, I definitely can't do in my 40s. And as I get creeping closer to 50, same situation. So it's nice to know that there are opportunities where we feel like we have some control over things that
Yeah.
we otherwise have no control over.
Well, and he was saying to me what you've said too, which is in your 50s and 60s, the average woman gains 1.5 pounds a year,
Mhm.
right? A year, which in 1 year, that may not be a big deal. But over the course of 20 years, that's a major change in your body weight and your appearance and the way you feel. So
Yeah.
his point was you got to stay on top of it. Don't, like that 1.5 pounds in 1 year actually does matter because it adds up. And that's really when I started to take a look at this. I'm like, okay, I don't want to diet. I don't really want to diet. So
Right.
what can I do? And intermittent fasting, it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I really thought it was going to be torture. But I follow the 16-8 method, which we'll get to. And I think that's totally doable for people who, even for people who are like, I couldn't possibly fast. But there's all sorts of ways that you can go about it. All right. So let's just talk about, before we get to how you do it, the benefits for men and women. Like what will it do other than watch your weight, right? And control weight. You can use it for weight loss or just weight maintenance. But there's a lot of other benefits.
I agree. So body composition, I always say that that's what brings people to intermittent fasting is they want to lose weight, but they stay for all the other benefits. So we know that we get improved mental clarity because we have lowered insulin levels. For many people, they're surprised at how much more productive their mornings are. So improved
Can you
mental
explain that
clarity.
though? What do you mean lowered insulin levels? And before you said we can get insulin resistant as we get
Yeah.
older. So can you just talk about insulin for a second?
Yeah. So insulin is a hormone. It's not a bad hormone, but it's a hormone that we want to master. And we want to ensure that we're not secreting insulin all day long, which is kind of aligned with this methodology slash dogma that many of us were raised with, that you want to eat mini meals and snacks. And that's how you are able to keep your metabolic fire going. It couldn't be farther from the truth. And so what happens when we're eating frequently throughout the day, whether it's sugar sweetened beverages, whether it is snacks and mini meals, what we are doing is we are secreting insulin more frequently. And with secreting insulin more frequently, what we're essentially doing is we shut off fat burning. And so what happens with intermittent fasting is you're eating less frequently. So you are using less insulin. And when you keep insulin low, it allows your body to use fat as a form of energy. And that is a
Mm.
really important principle for people to understand in a metabolically unhealthy population like we have. I think the latest statistic was 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy, which means they're either insulin resistant or obese or overweight. You really want to kind of embrace strategies that will try to keep your insulin levels better balanced. And one of those is just decreasing meal frequency and not snacking. So each one of those Starbucks, people think of, and I don't mean to call out on Starbucks, but those sugary coffee beverages that are more like
Oh
desserts, if
yeah.
you're having a couple of those a day in between meals, you're really setting yourself up for not being able to support your body the way that it's designed to thrive,
Wait,
not
so
just
I
survive.
didn't I didn't realize that. So you're saying not only should we be doing the intermittent fasting where you go a certain number of hours without eating anything, but you're saying even when you're in your eating window, you should not be snacking in between meals.
No, because really, if you get your meals properly put together, meaning a certain amount of animal protein or plant based protein, depending on who you are, with some healthy fats, you should be satiated from lunch to dinner. You shouldn't be getting hungry in between. And if you are, it just means that you need to increase your protein portion at your next meal. And so a
Mm,
lot of what I talk about is just helping people understand what macronutrients are, which is protein, fat, and carbs, so that they can structure their meals properly so they're not getting hungry in between meals. And I feel
okay.
on many levels, we've done ourselves a disservice telling people snacks and mini meals are the way to go, because that just contributes to that degree of metabolic inflexibility because your insulin levels aren't being managed properly.